Okay, Boker Tov. Today's daf is Pei Bet 82. We pick up in the bottom of Pei Alpha Bet, and we're in the middle of the 10 takanot that Yehoshua made with Bnei Israel when they entered into the land. Basically, something that demanded a certain compromise of personal property rights for the sake of the benefit of the larger community. And the last one is about 10 lines before the lines get the widest by the Judas, Meis Mitzvah. Okay, Meis Mitzvah Kona Mechamo. Wherever you find a dead body, you can bury it in that place. And if there's no obvious family that it belongs to. So the Gemara says, Ramini, I'll ask you on this. Hamotze Meis Mutaba Istaria. If you find a dead body lying in the middle of like a sratia. Sratia is a Greek word, and it means like a major road. You don't bury him right in the middle of the road itself. You move him to the right or to the left. You bury him in some field nearby. Sadeh bor v'sadeh. If you have to choose between a vacant lot and a plowed lot, and near is like plowed but nothing is growing there, but be turned over the dirt. Sadeh bor, you bring it to a vacant lot, an unplowed lot, right? Because better to create the least amount of damage possible. If it's between a plowed but unplanted lot and a planted field and a planted field, you do it to the plowed field. Plowed, like the dirt is turned over. If they were if both the right and the left were the same choice, you were same types of fields. Whichever one you choose, there's no rule. Hopefully you'll make some choice which is guided by some logical principle. Amar of Bibi. So anyway, how do you deal with this? Here it says you don't bury him straight in where you found him. But of course, the obvious answer is that here we're talking about a special case, that he's right there in the middle of a major thoroughfare. And the problem is that even if you could, halt traffic for a while to bury him, everybody who's going to go over the thoroughfare is going to become tamei, is going to become impure, right? So that's the obvious answer. Amar Bibi b'mutal al ha'meitzar. He is, the way Rashi explains this, is that he's lying across, from one edge to the next of the road, from boundary to boundary. And once you have to move him anyway, because there's no way you're going to bury him in the middle of the road, then you make some type of a choice. And if they're equal choices, then you do the one that makes the most sense. Okay, so that's the list of the 10. Now the Gemara says, Amri, look, if you take a look at it, the Gemara says, Asara, how can you say there are 10? They're 11. Asara, so if you counted them, I wasn't counting, but if you count them, there's 11, not 10. So the Gemara says no. Cutting through somebody's field when it's not being planted, at a time when it doesn't matter because nothing is growing there. So that Shlomo Amra, that's really not one of the takanos of Yehoshua. That's really based on a principle we learned from Shlomo. So it doesn't really count as one. So without that, there are 10. Kidatani, like we taught in the Breita. Somebody's fruit is no longer growing in the field; it's all been harvested, and the new stuff has not yet started growing. He doesn't care; he's standing on his property rights, and he doesn't let people cut through his field. So, what will people say about him? What benefit does he have keeping people out of his field? What are people? How are people hurting him? Why? What a stingy, whatever, person. What does it do for him that he's not letting us cross his field? Okay, so it's basically like a classic definition of, we could benefit, it's not hurting you. What are you doing? Not letting people go through. So technically, you're not doing anything illegal, but it's obviously, improper and immoral. So the Gemara says, regarding him, the verse says, Miyos tov al tikra ra. From being good, if you have a choice to be good, why should you be bad? Don't be called evil. So the Gemara says, what do you mean as the verse says? It doesn't. There's no verse that says this. Now, I didn't check Steinsaltz, but I'm willing to bet you dollars to donuts that this is a verse from Ben Sira. The Gemara a number of times quotes Ben Sira, which is one of the Apocrypha, and says, as it is written, even though you're not supposed to actually even be learning the Apocrypha. The Gemara knew Ben Sira pretty well. So anyway, that's my guess. But the Gemara says, no, that's not a pasuk. So the Gemara says, see, yes, but it's based on a pasuk, because there's a pasuk that says, Ki agavla, just like this. Al tin latov mi be'alav, do not hold back good from its owners, like do not, not do good to somebody, when you're able to, or maybe it means don't actually show gratitude. B'yod el yadecha, when you have the ability in your hand, when you're able to, lasso, to do it. So therefore, you can help somebody, help them if it doesn't hurt you. All right. Anyway, so that we're not going to count that because that's based on a pasuk in Shlomo, in Mishnah. So the Gemara says, "V'sug like what? There's no more than these 10, 11. The Ha'ika, here's some others. The Rabbi Yehuda, what Rabbi Yehuda teaches, Tani Rabbi Yehuda Omer, b'shat hotzas zvalim, when you're taking out, when it's time to sort of take out the dung, you have a right to bring it out to the public domain, but sober and you can pile it up there for 30 days, so that it should be sort of like stepped on by people, and I don't know, somehow that improves the dung. I don't exactly get it. Maybe it's not dung, maybe it means like refuse, and as people are walking on it anyway, it turns it into more usable fertilizer. Okay, and that was the stipulation when they entered into the land, that people would have a right to do that, to bring this stuff and to put it in the public domain, because that's something that everybody has a use for. So the Gemara says, Va'ika, and there's another one that's a condition of Yoshua. Rabbi Yishmael ben Yoshua Yochanan ben Broka. What Rabbi Yishmael teaches, Rabbi Yishmael ben Yoshua Yochanan ben Broka Omer, he said, Tanai based in who? It's a condition of the court. Let's say my bees have swarmed into your property, and they've all hovering around a branch. So the only way I can effectively bring that swarm of bees back to my yard is by cutting off that branch and bringing it with me, and then they'll stay around the branch. So I have a right to do that. You can't say, no, it's my branch, you can't do it. I have a right to do that. Maybe I'll pay for the branch, but I have a right to do it. Okay? You're paying for the branch. For tonight basin, it's a condition of the court. I can spill my wine in order to save your honey if I see your barrel of honey is breaking, but you'll have to pay me back for my wine. Okay, you can't say, I didn't ask you to spill your wine. Okay, for tonight based in it's a condition of the court. Let's say I'm going with my donkey and I'm carrying firewood, and I see that your donkey has broken its leg, and you have this flax, which is very expensive, and it's all going to get damaged. I can take out my firewood off my donkey, load my donkey up with your flax, and you'll have to pay me back for my firewood. Okay, and I can make you pay for it. Now, for us, we would say, it's not basic. That's a logical thing, it's expenses. But we didn't make explicit deal and stipulation. I just did it, and therefore, you have to pay me back for my expenses. Tosfos, by the way, is bothered with this because if you remember, there's another Gemara that says that when I spill my wine to save your honey, you only have to pay me my fee. You don't have to actually pay for the loss of the honey. So Tosfos basically says that in this case, you, the guy whose honey is being lost, actually are the one that you jump up and you spill out my wine, or you force me to spill out my wine. In that case, you have to pay me for my wine. All right, anyway, that was a condition. So the Gemara says, you see that there are others than just the ones we listed. So the Gemara says, we're not dealing with things that are taught in the name of individual opinions. We're dealing with something that is taught unanimously. Does that mean that other people disagree with this? Or does it just mean that it's not being taught unanimously? That's not so clear. Okay, so top of Pei Bet Amud Aleph. Kiyasa Ravi number of Yochanan. When Ravi came, he said the name of Yochanan. Echad Ilan Hanotel L'Toch Stei Chavero. Vechad Ilan Hamesa Hasamuch L'Meitzar Nevi V'Koresh. Amanas Kein Hinchi Yoshua Yisrael Haaretz. So he teaches the following Breita. It's not that he says, he says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Excuse me, not a Breita. He says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that if you have a tree that is inclining over, somebody else's field, or it's near a boundary line, that you bring bikurim from the tree. Now the question is, of course, if the tree's in your yard, why wouldn't you bring bikurim from the tree? So the answer is because there's another opinion in the Gemara that says, since you don't have a right to have your tree right there, because you're shading, you're damaging my field, it's hanging over my field, you should have to cut it or whatever. So therefore, you're essentially. Your tree, even though it's planted in your property, is illegitimately planted because of the impact it's having on my property. So there's a position in the Gemara that you're not allowed to bring bikurim from it because it shouldn't be there in the first place. And Rabbi Yochanan says, no, Yeshua said one of the conditions of Yeshua is you're allowed to bring it. Okay, and therefore, Rashi says that this is a Breita, and therefore, if it's a Breita, it's a Breita being taught unanimously. I mean, it's quoted by Rabbi Yochanan, but presumably it's a unanimous Breita. So why isn't this listed in the list of the 10 that we taught earlier? So the Gemara says, Elamantan Asara, Jnaim Kisha Yoshua. Finally, the Gemara says. So the original teaching of the 10 conditions of Yoshua is not a Breita. That actually is the opinion of an Amora. That's Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. That was just in the name of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. So sure, there are others that say that there are more, or there are different Tanaim. That's not some unanimous Breita. That's a particular opinion that those were the 10 conditions. Rav Gavia Mibei Kasil Matni Lebehedra. Rav Gavia Mibei Kasil teaches explicitly. Rav Tanchum Rav Beer's Army. Rav Tanchum following quote. Rav Tanchum and Rav Beer say Mishum Zamkin Echad in the name of an elder Umanu, and who is that elder? Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. And what does Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi say? Asar Tanaim Hisna Yoshua, 10 conditions. So it is not an anonymous Breita. It's possible there are different opinions about that list, but that's his list. Okay. Now the Gemara moves on from the 10 conditions of Yoshua to 10 conditions in the time of Ezra. And Ezra was like in the second coming back into the land. Now what's interesting in terms of the shift of emphasis here is that the phrase by Yoshua is, Hinchil Yehoshua et Haaretz. He bequeathed them the land. And it was very much about ownership of the land, setting up Jewish society in the land, right, in the sense of like communal needs and, and individual rights and all of that. That was very much the theme there. Ezra, he was more like the first rabbi, right? I mean, he was the one, he was not the one that they were settling in the land because they had they were given the right from Koresh, from the Persian king there. It was not like Ezra was the one who was determining their like political sense of, of their, of the structure and their ownership. He was the one that was like leading them religiously. So his takanot are going to be a very different type of a nature, much more of a religious nature.
So they didn't have sovereignty with Ezra.
They did not have sovereignty. The first time they got some degree of sovereignty was at the time of the Hashmonaim. Until then, they were really under the control of whatever foreign government had owned, was in control of the land of
Joshua
Israel.
did.
Joshua did.
Right.
Exactly. So yeah, it wasn't correct. I mean, the word sovereignty is a key word. Correct. So that is a key difference here. So they're settling in the time of Ezra. And the Gemara before was presuming that the Takanos of Yoshua lasted through their day and age, and even maybe in Eretz, even Chutzaretz or in Bavel, but nevertheless, the sense of what type of leadership somebody is doing, and the role someone is playing. By Yoshua, it was like he was a king, as it were, almost a political leader. It was about sovereignty. It was about setting up the economic structure. Ezra, it's much more religious leadership. So let's take a look. Asarat takanot king Ezra. 10 takanot Ezra established. Number 1, shekarim b'mincha b'Shabbos, shekarim b'mincha b'Shabbos. You read Shabbos mincha time. And you read the Torah on, Mondays and Thursdays. Okay, so very much. There's a whole scene in Ezra where they have a public reading of the Torah, and they actually not only have a public reading, they have it in translation as well. So it's a teaching of the Torah to the people. So that modeling that idea of a regular reading and a learning of Torah. Okay, that's 2. The Doni b'Sheni b'Chamishi. You set up courts on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And you do laundry. Thursday is the laundry day. Get everybody ready for Shabbos. Okay, and the purpose of that is that, people, if you have one day to do it, everybody's going to do it on that day. There's one day designated, so make sure everybody gets it done. Okay, Shabbat. You eat garlic on Friday. When a woman is going to be baking, she should bake early in the morning. Bakers get up at 4 a.m. to bake. We're going to see what all this is about. A woman should wear a sinar, which is some type of an undergarment. A sinar I thought normally meant like an apron, but how do they translate it there?
The note says an undergarment.
Yeah, it's more literally an apron. A woman should comb her hair before she goes into the mikvah. And that the spice sellers and fragrance sellers should have a right to travel in the various towns, and people can't prevent them from coming into their town. It's interesting, it switches the language here. He established immersion for a Baal Keri, for a man who had a seminal emission. So let's take a look. Gemara goes through this. Shukarim b'mincha b'Shabbos, Mishum Yoshvei Koronos, because of those people that sit in the Karon. What is the Karon? So Rashi says, I always thought it meant like the guys who hang out at the street corners and they're smoking and whatever, the good for nothings, so at least on Shabbos they have nowhere else to be, so they'll hear the reading of the Torah. But Rashi actually gives a more positive emphasis to what Yoshvei Koronos is. Rashi says Yoshvei Koronos are Bnei Adam, where's Rashi? Yoshvei Chanuyot, Kol Yemot HaChol. They're basically the storekeepers. They don't have time even on Mondays and Thursdays. The reason everybody's coming to hear the Torah is because it's a market day. But who's in the store? The storekeepers. They never have time to come to hear the reading of the Torah. Okay, so for Rashi, it's like not a bad thing, but they don't have any time to do anything to do it. Okay, so they're going to do it on Friday at Shabbos Mincha. Question is, why do they not do it the next? Why you still need it Friday? Shabbos Mincha. They're going to hear Shabbos Torah reading. Why do you need it in the afternoon? But I guess the point is they have so little Torah during the week. You give them another opportunity to be learning Torah. Okay, maybe you also help give them some anticipation of the next parsha for the coming week. Okay. So on Tuesdays and on Mondays and Thursdays. So the Gemara says, Ezra Tikin, was this Ezra's establishment? This was established much earlier, at the time you taught in Brisa. They went 3 days and they did not find water. Okay, and it says the Torah says that God showed Moshe a stick, and he threw it in the water, and it may sweeten the water, and there he made choku mishpat. All right, so what's going on here? So the Gemara says, with those that interpret hints in the psukim, say the following: Ein ma'im Torah means that they give a sort of a midrashic read of the psukim. Water means Torah. They didn't find Torah. They went 3 days. As Moshe says, 3 days is a chazaka. They were getting a little established in their non-engagement of Torah. So Shenemar, Hoi kol tzamei l'chul hamayim. Come all you thirsty, come to water. Given shloshes yamim b'lo Torah, they went 3 days without Torah. Nilu, they became weary. What does it mean? Their bodies were empty of a spiritual sustenance. So that's why they started fetching and complaining. Okay, and the Marsha says that's why the Torah says Vayoreu Hashem eitz. It's like it's an eitz chayim. Like that's the Marsha's drush of the rest of the pasuk. And that's why it's Sham Sam Lo Choku Mishpat. Like he made him a law. Anyway, the sense is that you have to have a regular learning of Torah. Amdu Neviim Shebeneim, the prophets among them, which means Moshe and Aaron and Miriam, stood among them. V'titnu Shu Karin b'Shabbos, that they should regularly read on Shabbos. Umafsikin, meaning be'echad b'Shabbos. You take a break on Sunday, v'korin b'sheni, and then you read on Monday. Mafsikin shlish revi, you break on Tuesday and Wednesday. V'korin b'chamish, you read on Thursday. Mafsikin erev Shabbos, you break on Friday. Today, so at most there's either a 1 or 2 day gap between the readings. Never 3 days between readings. Today, you shouldn't go 3 days without Torah. So you see, it wasn't Ezra. It was established way back by the time of the first thing they left Mitzrayim. So the Gemara says, no. Okay, Ezra expanded the Takana. Originally, one person got an aliyah and he read 3 psukim. Or 3 people came up to the Torah and each one read a pasuk for a total of 3 psukim. Representing Kohen Levi in Israel. Ezra came, taking psukim. 3 people should get a liyot and they should read a total of 10 psukim. Kineged asara batlanim. Opposite to 10 people that are just batlanim, are sort of like standing around doing nothing, meaning the 10 people that are regularly in the shul in order to be a regular presence and to make a minyan. Okay, so that's like a minyan man, basically. So Rashi says, if you look at Rashi, asar batlanim, Rashi says, b'nei adam ksherim. They do nothing. They're good people. They're not like the Yoshvei Koronos, the opposite of the Yoshvei Koronos. They're standing around, but they're standing around to be available for religious purposes. That they're there to do anything of communal needs and to be present in the shul to make a minyan. So that's what he established. Now, according to that, it just means that he established to read more psukim. But it also seems that it's reflecting the idea of this institution of a Sarah Batlanim, right? And the whole idea that you would have a sense of like a minyan. Like when they said, it's, again, the Gemara is also, was this really from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu? But within Chazal's, understanding that this was a takana that went all the way back, did they imagine it? It sounds sounds like they imagined it also with a formal thing of being called up to the Torah. One person, X psukim, 3 people, 3 psukim, but still one wonders, if the Gemara is also indicating that by the time of Ezra, it became more of a type of a synagogue experience with a sense of a minyan with 10 people, like it was more somehow ritualized, and that's the extra number of 10 is not just more psukim, but reflecting more this minyan and ritualized context. Okay, but anyway, those are 2 takanot about reading Torah, which clearly very much connect to Ezra. Tosfos, by the way, asks a question. He says, why Monday and Thursday? You could have made it Tuesday and Thursday. You could have made it Tuesday and Friday. There were a couple of days you could have chosen. So Tosfos quotes a Medrash that says that Moshe, when he went up to get the last luchot, the Medrash does the math and says he went up on a Thursday and he came down on a Monday. So those are days that are particularly times that are connecting us to the Torah. 8 Ratzon, says Tosfos. It's also why Tosfos says we have the minhag to fast on. They used to have fast days on Mondays and Thursdays because it's time that God is desirous of our prayers. Of course, you don't really need that. Once people are getting together for reading the Torah on Mondays and Thursdays, if you're going to have fast days, you're going to do it on times when everybody's getting together to read the Torah. And that also ties into the next issue about the courts. The Dani b'Sheni b'Chamishi, you would have courts on Mondays and Thursdays. Because that's when people would be around, because people would come to hear the Torah reading. It's an interesting question of like the chicken and the egg, right? Did you have the courts on Mondays and Thursdays, and that's why you established them as Torah reading days, or did you have the Torah reading days, and that's why they were court days? But anyway, it's a nice way, right? You have these major days in which things get done that get people together, right? Maybe they both takanot came at the same time. Hey, let's do Torah reading and court days, and for one reason or another, people will come for one. They'll be there for the other one.
What about the market idea?
I think that he didn't formally establish the market, but I think that also arose from it. If those are the days that people are
that arose from that rather than the other way around.
Yeah, I mean it's true. You could speculate. You don't know, but it seems that these all sort of are going to come hand in hand. By the way, Tosfos has an interesting question. Tosfos says, another place makes it sound that before Ezra, Beis Din sat every day. So he says, what was Ezra doing? He was saying that they should sit less frequently. So this says, well, maybe before him they sat every day only in major centers, and he established that they would sit on Mondays and Thursdays in all the villages and all the towns. But it's also possible, sometimes if something is actually less frequent, it's actually more productive, right? Because then everybody focuses their activities. It's sort of like, why don't you just do the laundry every day? Why don't you have any days for doing laundry? But if you have a focused day, it gets it done and it gets people focused on it. Okay, so that's so the there we go, doing the laundry. For the Shabbos, in order to honor Shabbos, and they would eat garlic on Erev Shabbos. Mishum ona, for the purpose of the mitzvah of having marital sex relations. So therefore, we're going to see in a minute that garlic is, maybe it doesn't want somebody to get too close to you. Maybe you brush your teeth afterwards, but it's supposed to be good for the semen. Okay, and therefore it's assumption that that's when people are going to be having sex. Because the verse says, "Ashir pirio yitain b'ito," will give his fruit in the right time. From Rav Yehuda, v'temer Rav Nachman, v'temer Rav Kahana, v'temer Rav Yochanan. This is somebody that has sex on from Friday night to Friday night. Now, the actual mitzvah of Ona, like a standard frequency, is once a week. But here the Gemara specifically focuses on the idea to do it on Friday night. Presumably, some people tie it in to the idea of Oneg Shabbos, or maybe that's a time when people are not distracted by other things, But also, it should be noted that, there were sects, like SECTS, anyway, at particularly the Bayit Sheni period, that said it's forbidden to have sex on Shabbos. If it's a holy day, how could you do this most physical type of an experience, sensual type of an experience? It's supposed to be a spiritual and a religious day. So Chazal very much, it really sort of showed, said, no, Shabbos is a mitzvah to have physical pleasure, Oneg Shabbos, sex, right? So it's like a really interesting question of like a religious mindset, like an anti-asceticism type of an approach. Okay, so the Gemara says, five things are said about garlic. Masbia, it makes you feel sated. Umashchina makes you feel like warm inside. Umatil panim gives you a nice glow. Umar behazera increases the semen. Vahorekinim and destroys any lice in your stomach, intestinal bugs, bacteria, I guess, I don't know. Yesham, some say machnis avo motias akina, because it has all these other benefits. It just increases a sense. It makes you feel good. It makes you glow inside. Makes you love people. Have this love. Get rid of this jealousy. Great thing. garlic. Okay, just don't get too close to it. Brush your teeth. Isha, garlic is one of those superfoods, by the way. It really is. Like I think what the nutritionists say. Isha, mashkemes v'ofa. A woman, if she's going to bake bread, should do it early in the morning. Because the poor people, they're going around. So people, if everybody's baking bread, they'll have. And bread is obviously, very, this sort of what's it called, the staple of life, or the staff of life. So bread, the poor people will have bread. She should wear some undergarment, type of an undergarment, because of modesty. She should comb her hair before she goes to the mikvah. Now remember, we think of mikvah as only something that women do for nida, but in the time of Ezra, everybody would be going to the mikvah for any type of impurity because of all the the sacrifices and the taharos. So why does he only mention women? So the clear answer is, why do you think he only mentions women? What do you think, David? Have a thought? Because women have long hair. So that's why, since this basically was about getting knots out of hair and disentangling hair, whatever. So, it wasn't like, it wouldn't, like, if a man had long hair, a woman had short hair, it would apply to the person who had the long hair. But nevertheless, the basic takana was for about women, because it was about combing your hair to get out any types of knots. So the Gemara says, Doraisihi, that's a biblical obligation. Jatanya, Farchatis Bisaro b'mayim, you have to, bathe your flesh with water. That's the verse that speaks about immersion, ritual immersion. It has to be your flesh has to be directly in contact with the water. That's your flesh. Es Bisara, but it says et. Your flesh, but it uses the extra word et a tovel, or something that is connected to the flesh, which is what? Remind you say on. But your hair has to be directly in contact with the water. So, of course, you have to comb out your hair to get out any types of things that might be in the way. That's a mitzvah. The Torah demands that that's what tefillah is. So the Gemara says, no. You say, biblically, it's enough just to inspect your hair, I guess, with your hands. Dilma mikter, maybe there's a knot. Inami mos, midi, or maybe something is, some type of disgusting thing is in your hair. Mishum chatzitza, that'll be an obstruction and won't make going to the mikvah good. He said that's not enough to just run your fingers through your hair or do some type of a visual inspection. You actually have to comb your hair. Now, there's an interesting point that Tosfos discusses, which is, we have something that before women go to the mikvah, they do a whole process of like sitting in the bath and whatever, and preparing, and bathing their body and inspecting every part of their body and scrubbing themselves. So Tosfos says that it seems from the Gemara, obviously, that was an ancient practice. Like there's evidence in the Gemara that they were doing that, but that it does not seem that it was formally part of the Takana of Ezra. That the Takana of Ezra, because your body you could just inspect, right, and see if there's something, but the hair is harder. It gets knotted, it's harder to see, and so on. So that the Takana of Ezra was really about the hair. The body was not a Takana, although that obviously practice of doing a bathing and an inspection of it came later. Even by the hair, the interesting question is it just combing or is it washing and combing? So there's some interesting questions around that. Okay, Yurochli Machzir Bayarot, and the fragrance sellers could go around into the villages. This is interesting because this is the one thing that doesn't sound so ritual related, but we'll see it sort of is. Mishum Tachshit Einashim, in order to sell women various, jewelry or fragrances, so that they should not be found, be disgusting to their husbands. Right? Their husbands should desire them. So it's very different than the property rights, the more sort of communal look, is the more sort of private look, But it's also, I guess, similar to the tzinar issue before the tzinar, the modesty, a concern sort of about family life. The Tikain Tefillah Balakirian, and he said that somebody, a man who had a seminal mission, has to go to the mikvah. So it says Doraisahu, that's biblical. Tichsiv. If a man has seminal emission, he has to go to the mikvah in order to be pure. So that's the Torah says that's what you need to do to be pure. So the Gemara says no. So the truma of a kashim. According to the Torah, sure, that you're impure and without going to the mikvah, but what's the implications of being impure according to the Torah? That you can't touch or eat truma, or you can't touch or eat sacrifices. So that, of course, that's true. But what he did is, he said that if he really wasn't mataking going to the mikvah, what he really was mataking was that if you're a Baal Keri, you can't learn Torah until you've gone to the mikvah. You can't daven until you've gone to the mikvah. So you might know, for example, that some Hasidim have a practice of every morning going to the mikvah. So where this comes from, if you didn't know where it comes from, I'm going to tell you now. Where this comes from is because this Gemara, it says, can't learn Torah, you can't daven without going to the mikveh. So what do you do? So I mean, anytime a man has had sex with his wife or has had a seminal emission, he would have to go to the mikveh that morning. Of course, then you go look in the morning and you see men going to the mikveh. You start wondering you connect the dots. So therefore, it became the practice. You just go to the mikveh every morning, so nobody wonders what you were doing that night before, right? And but you have to, else how are you supposed to daven? How are you supposed to learn Torah? So the thing is that, so why doesn't everybody have to do that? So if you take a look at Tosfos, Tosfos said, "Lo kaim alam hachi." We don't rule this way. Elok Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, the Amar Divrei Torah ein mekabelin tum'ah. The words of Torah cannot become tamei. He basically overrode Ezra's takana, and that gets into this whole question though, because if Ezra makes a takana, what some later Amora has the power to override this takana, but then it's also evident that people were not really able to keep by this takana, so it becomes a takana that most of the community couldn't abide by. But that led to interesting questions. So there's definitely some places that still kept to this takana, and that's why this practice came up amongst some to go to the mikveh every single morning. Okay, so then the Gemara says, now we move on from Ezra to Yerushalayim. We're listing 10 things, right? So those are takanot, and here are going to be more like laws. So Asarad Dvarim Nemru Yerushalayim. 10 laws were said relating to Jerusalem. Ein habayis chalutba. A house cannot become a Metzora house in Yerushalayim. And the Eina Mevia Egla Rufa, if there's a dead body, a murder victim outside of Yerushalayim, you do not bring the Egla Rufa, the calf that you break the neck for Yerushalayim. Veinu Nasis Irni Dachas, if the entire city worships Avodah Zarah, you do not wipe out the entire city. If something, I'm sorry, when I jumped ahead, Chalutba was not Tzarat. The Eina means that a house does not become a house of Tzarat in Yerushalayim. Eina Bait Chalutba means if somebody sells a house in Yerushalayim, so in all other walled cities, if it's not bought back within the year, it becomes permanently owned by the buyer. Whereas in Yerushalayim, you have the right to buy back the house, until the Yovel. Okay, so that's what Ein Habayit Chalutba means. The Ein Motzin Bal Gizizin V'Gezusturot. You do not have like beams, coming out from the rooftops and balconies protruding over the streets in Yerushalayim. The Ein Osim Ba'ashpatot. You do not make garbage dumps in Yerushalayim. The Ein Osim Ba'Kivshonot. You do not make places of kilns of firing, pottery or whatever in Yerushalayim. This might be the most surprising one. You don't make gardens and orchards in Yerushalayim. Chutz miganot vardin, except for gardens of roses. That was the practice from the early times of the early prophets. I think there's a question whether vered really means a rose, because Posuk in Shir Hashirim, which is what is it? Sisosav Shoshanim. His lips are like Shoshanim. For us, a Shoshan is a lily, right? What don't we say? I think that's how we translate Shoshan. Anyway, but it doesn't make sense. Your lips are like roses, not your lips are like lilies. So I'm not sure that vered originally meant rose. How do they translate vered there? What do they say? Rose gardens?
They say exception to maintain the garden of roses.
Roses, yeah. Okay.
They also have the Rashi that was a specific place.
Was it? It wasn't rose gardens in general. It was the name of a place.
It was the name of a garden in Jerusalem.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Is that what this Rashi says? Kach Shema. Aha. Yeah, I guess Kach Shema makes it sound like it's a name place. That's interesting. Okay. Anyway, Rashi says the reason was that they needed it for making of the incense. Okay. The aim megadlim batarnagolim, they would not. You don't raise chickens. The aim malini basames, you do not let a dead body stay overnight. Normally, there's a biblical prohibition to let a body stay overnight. But if it's needed for the honor of the dead body, you're allowed to do it. But in Yerushalayim, they would not. And that actually still applies even till today. Ein habayit chalutba, a house does not become fully sold over to the buyer. The seller can always buy it back. To see the Kamma baisa shelo choma, and the house that's in a place that has a wall, which should transfer over fully to the buyer. Lakonel tov l'dorotav, to what a purchase it for future generations. Because this is going to be the theme here. Jerusalem was a international city, or not international, was a national city. Okay, it was not the property of any one tribe. And therefore, now normally there's a pasuk that makes it clear that a certain law applies to a city that is considered to be possessed by a particular tribe. But I don't exactly see the word they're darshaning it from here. Maybe the word l'dorotah for future generations that suggests a sense of like permanent ownership. Okay, whereas Yerushalayim fundamentally, is a national city, and therefore this law does not apply. The Eina Mevia Egla Rufa, you do not bring if there's a dead body out, a murder victim, you don't bring a calf that you break its neck. If you find a corpse, a murder victim, on the ground, which Hashem has given you to inherit, meaning so it's Yushalayim lo nitchapul shvatim. Again, that's the word God is giving to you to inherit. So that's as a sense of that it's owned, to be passed down by one tribe and by its owners, by the people who own it to, their descendants. And this remains, in some sense, again, you wonder, what does that mean? People didn't buy property, exactly how things work. But nevertheless, conceptually, this isn't owned by anybody. And therefore, it's not that God has given you l'rishta to inherit. All right. It does not become a city that will get totally burned down if the people worship the Avodah Zarah. Deceive ircha, your city, which has its sense of being owned and possessed. It wasn't divided amongst the tribes. It wasn't given over to any one tribe. It doesn't become tamei if one of the houses gets tzaraat, like this spot. I will give it in the house of the land that you have taken possession of. And again, this was not given over to any one tribe. The ain motzim bazizim the gezus road. So all those are more formal exceptions. Now we're going to hear some practical things. You don't have these protruding beams or balconies over the street because if a dead body, some dead thing on the street, right, a dead corpse, and then if you have a long balcony, it'll transfer it to people that are very distant from it. And in Yerushalayim, where all the sacrifices are, you do not want to increase the amount of the spreading of the tum'ah. There was actually a time of some poskim wrote about the fact that in certain towns there was a Jewish street, and all the Jews lived on this one street, and there were these balconies that came out from, if you imagine a row of houses, right? It wasn't separate houses. It was like a big attached row of houses, and these balconies protruded. Anytime there was a dead body in any one house, the tumor would go into all the houses. It would spread under the balcony and then go into the windows. So it was a whole big question about how to deal with those cases. Okay. And another practical thing. If you have protruding things in the street and your people are coming in and they're traveling, there's a lot of visitors that come to Yerushalayim, for the regel and all of that. So if they'll be walking and they'll be banging their head, or they'll be riding on horses and banging their heads on these protrusions. Okay, the enosim ba'ashpatot, you don't make garbage dumps. You just think maybe it's disgusting. Yerushalayim is this international city, as we just said. But no, or national city. Mishum shkatzim, because of rodents, because it attracts rodents, and dead rodents are a source of tumah. Vein osim ba'kib shonot, you don't make these kilns, these places for firing up a pottery. Mishum kutra, because of the smoke, and it's bad air, the air pollution. Vein osim ba'ganot pardesim. You do not make gardens or orchards. That's the curious one. Mishum sircha, because those things, even though they might look beautiful, they give off a stink. I think an apple orchard in particular. You ever been in an apple orchard? Apparently it's a really bad smell. Anyway, and also maybe because of all the fertilizer it requires. The ain't megadlim batar negolim. You don't have chickens. Mishum kochim, because the chickens go and they go and they move. They peck around and they move little things, and they'll bring like a little piece of bone and they'll put it on your, and they'll get your truma, your sacrifices tameh. The ain malini basa mate, and you don't let a dead body sleep over tomorrow. That's just a tradition. We don't actually have a reason for it, but obviously it must connect to the sense of the kedusha and the ta'ara, the purity of Yerushalayim. They should have just made it to kind of that you're not allowed to die in Yerushalayim. Okay. Now we move on. So that was a nice list of 10 things. And now we go back to the Mishnah that speaks about things that you're not allowed to do in general. It started with in Eretz Yisrael for the sake of the Jewish community in Eretz Yisrael, but then it goes on in other types of things. Like it starts with raising, grazing animals, but then it moves on to other things. So let's now look. So you can't raise grazing animals in the land of Israel, but you can't raise pigs anywhere. Tana Rabbanan, our rabbis taught. When there were the wars of the different families of the Chashmonayim, and that one was laying siege to the other. Horkinus was inside Yerushalayim, Aristobulus mi bachutz, and Aristobulus was on the outside, laying siege to Yerushalayim. And every day, though, everybody was good from Jews, even though they were at civil war. So they would lower down from Yerushalayim a basket with dinari in it, with these gold coins, or silver coins, and they would send up, the sheep to be used as the daily sacrifice. There was one elder among them. He knew Greek wisdom. I never understood this because what he's about to say has nothing to do with Greeks. But anyway, he knew Greek wisdom. He said to them, as long as they are able to continue doing the divine sacrifice, God won't let them, be conquered by you. Again, like that's such a Jewish religious type of a thing to be saying. I don't really understand the Chachma Yevani's point of this.
He has a note.
Yeah, what does the note say?
He was a cryptic, elusive language spoken by members of the royal household. So
right.
It was indecipherable by the masses.
It was like a code.
Yeah,
right.
The other people couldn't understand.
Yeah, so that's what the Gemara is going to say later. There was some type of a coded language. But again, it doesn't still fully explain it. I can say, hey, we need to have a little private consultation, right? And the whole word Chachma Yevanis sounds like it's some field of wisdom. It doesn't feel like it's just some coded speech.
But to the Greek, the Hellenists that are fighting.
Yeah, but that is not a Hellenistic type of a perspective on things. As long as they're doing the worship, maybe it is. I don't know. I mean, the Greeks believed in their gods, and they believed, so. There's something.
So, the battle between the Hellenists and the Jews were trying to make.
That's I don't know enough. There's a lot of historical stuff about this, which Josephus and elsewhere, whatever. I just don't know. I'd have to chazer, and I don't know off the top of my head. But I don't know if specifically it was between the religious and the Hellenists. I think it was more just a power play. But I'm not sure. I don't remember. You might be right. He said to them, "I'll take a look because maybe you're right. Maybe that would tie into the Chachma Yevanis."
That's what I meant.
Yeah. So let me take a look about that. He said to them, the next day, so when they lowered down the dinari, they sent up not a sheep, but a pig. He got to half the wall. The pig stuck its claws into the wall, because Rashi says that's what pigs do if you try to schlep them somewhere they don't want to go. The entire land of Israel, which was assumed to be 400 parsecs by 400 parsecs, it shook like by not the heresy, what's the word, the blasphemy, as it were, about this act, the sacrilege. That's the word. Okay, here it is. Like, not only are you not sending up the sheep, you're doing this pig or whatever. Okay, but Osa Sha'am, at that time they said, cursed be the person who raises pigs. Cursed be the person who teaches his son Greek wisdom. And it was at that time in Jewish history that the following Mishnah was taught. Ma said that there was a time, says this Mishnah in Menachos, Sheba Omer Miganot Hatzrifin. They had to bring the Omer from a distant place, from the gardens of Tzrifim, and the Shtelechem from this place, the valley of Ein Socher, because they were not, since they were besieged, they did not have enough local wheat in order to bring these sacrifices. So anyway, that's like a side comment. Now Tosas asked an important question. He asks a couple of questions. First, Tosas Lo Yigadu Chazirim says, typically the Asul Lasot Schor B'chol Dvarim Hatmeim. He says normally we have a principle that you are not allowed to have a business with non-kosher food items. Meaning you can, if you're like going fishing and in your net you catch some type of lobsters by accident, but you're fishing for tuna, you can sell the lobsters. But you're not supposed to have a business in lobsters, in non-kosher food items. So how here he says, why do you when it says you shouldn't raise pigs? It sounds like you're having a pig farm. You're doing this as a business. Why isn't that forbidden? So why did you need this special takana? And according to some, it might even be based on a biblical verse. So Tosa says, if it's only when you're doing it for food, like you're doing it as a food item, but you could be raising chazirim. He says there could be other purposes. Apparently, you could be doing them for their. He says, like for their hides and for their oil, for their fat, to use this. So, but although to me it's like a little funny because it seems like you wouldn't raise. There'd be a lot be wasted if you would just be interested in the hides and the fat of the pig. I mean, I guess pig fat has a lot of uses, but what are you going to do? I mean, that's lard, isn't lard pig fat? I think so. But anyway. That's Tosa's answer. The other answer would be that's a rabbinic law, and that law hadn't been passed yet. But nevertheless, it's still interesting. Why did the Mishnah have to say it? Because by the time of the Mishnah, that law had already been in place, and you're not allowed to do focused business on, with non-kosher items. So that's one question. And then the other question Tosfos has is that we already actually in an earlier war they had made a they had said that that you couldn't at the end of Bayis Rishon, apparently according to one Gemara they said 1 minute. No, I'm sorry, Bayis Sheni, excuse me, Titus. No, I'm sorry. No, another one. It's the reverse. Here this says that they had a curse from the time of this the Chashmonayim to do Chachma Yevanis. But another Gemara says that at the time of the wars of the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash, they made a prohibition to learn Chachma Yevanis. So Tosfos says, what's the story? So he says, well, here was just a curse. If you wanted to do it and get cursed, that was up to you. But by the time of the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, there it actually became a formal rabbinic, prohibition. The point is, there seems to be a certain amount of redundancy and overlap in some of these issues. Okay, so now, we really are done. So we'll end here, I guess, and we'll pick up with this tomorrow. Okay, maybe by then I'll have an answer to you about whether this was a war between Hellenists and religionists.